Hello everyone, welcome to an analysis of dance where we discuss the movements and debuts of the Billboard Hot Dance charts in immaculate detail, with in-depth reviews of each debut each week. Well guys, we're here. 10 debuts, complete and utter chaos, and nothing to really hold on to boot. And given the quality of some of these and what they replaced to get here, yeah, this week is going to be ugly and incredibly long, so stay tuned for that. So let's not waste any more time here. Our top 10, where Houdini by Dua Lipa is still at number 1, although given the fact that her new single is getting some big momentum behind us, I can see this actually losing the top spot, at least for a little while, although I don't see it falling off anytime soon considering radio is really damn strong with it. That being said, it's still notable that Training Season by Dua Lipa is also hanging on at number 2, where she's going to get a top 3 sweep come next week thanks to one of the debuts, which I'll talk about later. Although in this case, I don't see this actually hitting number 1 considering it's stalling out on streaming, and while radio is still growing on it, it is going at a really slow pace. I don't see it sticking around much longer. But more than ever, I see Yes and by Ariana Grande falling past number 3, and surprisingly it actually held steady on streaming this week, even though it has absolutely no rating to speak of. But next week it's gonna absolutely get bulldozed by all the albums and get knocked off the Hot 100, so I don't see this lasting. But again, it's so weird that Back on 74 by Jungle is likely gonna overtake it at number 4, where the radio is still slow to get back on board with this, but the streaming is continuing to surge at a record pace. If it wasn't for the massive albums, this might have actually had a chance at the Hot 100, but we'll have to see how it goes after Taylor Swift absolutely bulldozes everything. But now we have to get on to the most notable story of this week, for better or mostly for worse. We have our first of 2 top 10 debuts this week at number 5. Karma by JoJo Siwa. Now I could say that this only got as high as it did because it's a fleeting child actor trying to go for an edgy rebrand that's just as unconvincing as when Jake Paul and Jacob Sartorius did it. But let's be real, this is mainly off of huge YouTube and a little bit of streaming that's already starting to stall her in record pace, so I expect this to absolutely free fall out of the top 5 next week. Might end up being the biggest fall out of the top 10 in the Hot Dance charts history, which I definitely can't complain about, as I'll talk about later on. But for now, it knocked down Murder on the Dance Floor by Sophie Ellis-Bextor to number 6, and I don't see this rebounding anytime soon. Radio is long done with this one, streaming is starting to rotate out on this one too. It might be on its way out naturally after doing way better than I think anyone expected. And the same deal with Contigo by Karol G and Tiesto at number 7, although this one somehow got a huge streaming rebound to make up the fact that that's literally all it's got, and it's not rebounding fast enough for it to actually make any sort of impact anymore. Good. But the main story is that Strangers by Kenya Grace fell down to number 8, and I see this continuing to collapse in record time, especially given that streaming is rotating out this one fast, and radio has long given up on this. It's probably going to end up being gone soon, and man, it had a much better run than I expected, but I don't expect to see much of anything from Kenya Grace ever again. That's a shame. Sadly, what is a consistent charter is our second top 10 debut at number 9, and one that I unfortunately predicted, I Don't Wanna Wait by David Guetta and OneRepublic. Now this I don't see lasting considering streaming has already fallen back considerably, and the radio is not getting on board with this in the same way it did with his previous songs of this kind. It's already underperforming even by the standards of his sample meme hits that he's had in recent memory. Finally, Whatever by Kygo and Ava Max is at number 10, and really if there's a song where its title sets up a bigger punchline than anything I could say, it's this one, and the public seems to agree it's probably going to be out of the top 10 next week. But what shocked me was that when we got to our falls and fall-offs, there wasn't a whole lot of note, all things considered. Yes, we had fall-offs for Ice Whore by Lumi Athena, Dance Alone by Sia and Kylie Minogue, wow that underperformed, Paranoia by Ken Tenchi, and What You Need by Asteria. But the thing is, a lot of these are either borderline or not making the year-end list at all, with Ice Whore being the only one that's confirmed, and thankfully being one of the better songs here. But man, where the fall-offs didn't deliver, the falls made up for it in spades, because we got a considerable amount of them this week. I mean, let's get the continued collapse of My House by Beyonce falling all the way to 47. This might not even last 20 weeks, which for a top 5 debut is not good. Or Lighter by Galantis, David Guetta and 5 Seconds of Summer continuing to just utterly collapse at 33. This might not even last that long, which for a Galantis comeback single is really not good. Hell, there's also Dyson Roll by Odetari falling to 25, taking another modest hit, which for a big song from Odetari, that's really surprising. Shame, because it's one of his better songs. And hell, there are songs that are exiting naturally, like One Night All Night by Justice and Tame Impala at 43, or Deep in Your Love by Alok and B-Rex are somehow still here at 41, or Perfect Exceeder by Mason and Princess Superstar somehow still around at 31. Interesting that this bypassed recurrent rules considering it's a much older song, but hey, I can't complain at all. But what that leaves us with are songs that felt like they were just knocked down considerably by the high influx of higher debuts, and these are a mixed bag. I mean, that's definitely the case for Lil Freak by BB No Money losing all of its games to 23, or Tuka Donka by Curse Devil DJ Fuck You and scored at 34, which seems to be exiting pretty naturally and will probably end up making its year-end list spots. Good. Finally, The Rest with Somebody 2024 by Goche, Kimbra, Fisher, Chris Lake and Sam Sanson at 36. This can leave any time now, just saying. Once again, Mysterious Game by Langlux at 29, H plus 3 plus Poison 7 LUC JLo OT6 by Viabel at 28, and finally, Funked Up by Xanteria and ISQ at 27. How the hell is this still sticking around? But even with this and absolutely no comebacks at all, we somehow had a single jump this week. Even more frustrating is that it's once again Diamante Rosa by Vets Archive and MC Stir off the debut to 45. Can we not have this sticking around, please? It's already bad enough that Diamonds and Roses is not a particularly good song and stuck around long enough to make the year-end list, but with this, okay, we don't need another one, please. But thankfully, onto something a lot better with our 10 debuts, starting off with number 48, Sunshine My Girl by Wuki. I've got sunshine. This one charting now just feels really bizarre to me, especially considering this song came out in September of 2023 and Wuki doesn't have the sort of chart history that doesn't really indicate that a second single would actually chart at all, let alone this late. Now, given I really did not like his remix of Edge of 17, I wasn't really all that excited for what he was going to put out next, and seeing this chart kind of made me worried, and thankfully this is a lot better. Now, maybe it's just because I'm not as familiar with the original sample. I haven't actually really heard the original song by The Temptations. Sorry, I don't really listen to a lot of that old sort of music, it's not for me. But really, Wuki's bet on it feels surprisingly authentic. I mean, I like the fact that he kept the old school feel of the song intact, using the vocals and guitars from the original alongside a legitimately great bass line and some really hard-hitting tech house production that makes this feel really unique in the scene. Between this and Saving Up by Dom Dollar, this sort of old school flair is starting to make its way into tech house and getting a lot more success as a result, and I honestly think it would be a nice change of pace. It is quite interesting in that regard. Now, yes, it is very short and does get a little bit repetitive. Kind of makes sense because the original song was quite concise in its length and wasn't the most interesting song in the world or anything. But honestly, if this was able to chart later than expected, I'm definitely not complaining because this is actually pretty solid. Check this out if you haven't. Number 46, Heaven or Not by Diplo and Riva Starr featuring Kareen Lomax. I'm not afraid of falling, you bring me closer to God. At this point, I feel like Diplo and Kareen Lomax should really release an EP together, considering this is their 4th collaboration that they've done, and really considering the quality of the rest of the songs, I was really excited for this, and honestly, the fact that it charted at all is quite interesting to me. I mean, I was also excited for this because Riva Starr has been really showing himself to be a legitimately great producer and collaborator, and this thankfully proves it because this is absolutely great. Strong atmospheric house with bass that creates a really phenomenal groove against the soulful vocals of Kareen Lomax, who continues to prove why she's one of the best in the mainstream electronic vocal scene. Honestly, this whole song just reminds me a lot of Wild Girl by Keto and Impress of, and that's absolutely a good thing considering how gorgeous that song is. I also really like the fact that it goes from more of a slightly suffocating vibe with more focus on the bass and kick drums over any sort of actual melody in terms of driving the groove, and I honestly think it's a really great sound that Diplo should really explore with more in the future. I mean, I don't see this sticking around considering how low it debuted, but man, it was a really effective as hell song. I'm really on board with this great track. Number 42, Illusion by Dua Lipa. Don't know who you think that you're confusing. I'd be like, ooh, it's amusing. You think I'm gonna fall for an illusion. So it seems like Dua Lipa's Natasha's momentum for Radical Optimism is absolutely working in her favor, considering this only debuted off of 2 days of tracking and is likely to surge to #1 next week. It's a very telling sign that people are fully on board with this new direction that she's going for, which is really great for me considering I've liked all the singles so far, and thankfully this is no exception. In fact, I might actually consider this the best of the singles so far and one of her best songs to date. For starters, this goes for much more of a low-key house vibe with those pianos against some distant strings and a really terrific bass line that creates a phenomenal groove here, where the atmosphere feels so serene and relaxed and really allows Dua Lipa to fit on this vibe perfectly. Whoever decides to connect her with Kevin Parker of Tame Impala fame has really been doing really good wonders for her careers. She's been able to be pushed outside of her general disco wheelhouse into some different directions that have worked well for her 3 times now, and it's really fitting for a song talking about the mistakes of her past relationships and how she's learnt and been able to actually fall through with any sort of fake people that she hooks up with. Where by the hook she's fully playing into it and exposing the fakeness of future partners and breaking through their illusions to show that she is truly above it all. Her own writing there, it's showing her growth and maturity that she's been building across her past few albums, and honestly, if this is a sign of the sort of songwriting that's coming through on Radical Optimism, I am definitely excited for that. So yeah, excellent song, one of her best to date. Really looking forward to this surging up big next week, and I hope to God this is able to stick around. It is excellent. Number 39, Changes by Empire of the Sun.
This time the light before, this time we're going places. Letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go.
Okay, I am genuinely shocked that we're actually getting an Empire of the Sun song charting on the Hot Dance charts in 2024. I mean, considering their collab with PNAU was not really all that well received and didn't perform all that well, the fact that we're getting a solo Empire of the Sun song and a lead single to their new album after 2 Vines came out in 2016, that is really interesting to me. Especially considering they haven't had a ton of cultural power since Walking on a Dream. In fact, their other charting songs have really relied on first week sales or club play to get any sort of momentum. So I was kind of curious how this would turn out, and honestly, I'm not impressed by this. The smoother synthwave production does sound nice at first, especially with those guitars, and it always is nice to hear Luke Steele back on vocals. He still sounds good as ever. Problem is, this song just drags on. For starters, there's barely any progression at all, where the song just kind of sits in place for 3.5 minutes and feels a lot longer than it is. Alongside that, there's not really a strong hook here, or lyrics that mean a shit. And it just makes me wonder why I'm not listening to better Empire of the Song songs from the past, like Alive or Celebrate or We Are the People or High and Low, or even Walking on a Dream that I still quite enjoy. Those have a lot more personality and genuine energy than this ever had. I mean, it feels very stock for this duo, and considering some of the detours that they successfully pulled off on 2 Vines, the fact that they're going back to this is kind of concerning for the new album. I mean, it's not bad, but this should be way better than what it is. Number 32, B2B by Charli XCX.
Back to us, maybe you should run right back to her. I don't wanna go back to back to back to back to back to you. I don't wanna fall right back to us. Maybe you should run right back to her. I don't wanna go back.
Gonna keep my thoughts short on these ones, and honestly, it's all down to the fact that I've already talked about my thoughts on her new Pivot in the Von Dutch review. Thank God though that this is way better. In fact, I like this quite a bit. I mean, right off the bat, it's clear that this sort of deep house production really works wonders for Charli XCX's vocals, especially when she's got the sort of brash personality that can float over the sort of acidic synths and the really great bass line underscoring the whole track, where it goes into some detours and even includes some stutter editing by the end that honestly kept me engaged the entire way through. I mean, it is very underwritten in terms of lyrics. You could have honestly given this a lot more than just a constantly repetitive chorus, but honestly, besides that, I really enjoyed this. I don't expect it to stick around considering it's a B-side and the A-side chart considerably higher, but hey, I'm glad that it's here. It's a really good song. Number 21, Club Classics by Charli XCX.
Club classics, club classics. When I go to the club, I wanna hear those club classics. Club classics. Club classics.
Sadly, the much higher charting song is the one I'm a lot more mixed on. In fact, I didn't really care for this at all. I mean, I get the appeal. The loves against the faster Jersey club instrumental that ramps up into house by the end. It is interesting at least, and Charli XCX at least fits over it, but otherwise I wasn't really on board with the production with this one to begin with. It feels like Charli's voice is way too loud in the mix. The beat changes just constantly remove any sort of memorable elements from the previous ones, and the backing vocals often slip off key where they're trying for more of a Britney Spears approach that just doesn't really work for me. Yes, I can appreciate certain production choices and also the lyrics referencing dancing to Hudson Mohawk in the late Sophie, which absolutely made me smile, but otherwise it's kind of forgettable. Not my favorite of her songs. It's okay, I guess. Number 19, These Words by Badger and Natasha Bedingfield.
I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. There's no other way to better say I love you, love you, love you.
I mean, I'd certainly take both over this, because seriously, why of all songs that you're turning into modern tech house remixes are you going for These Words by Natasha Bedingfield? I mean, seriously, it's getting weird that she's getting an actual revival in 2024 at all, but you could have chosen Pocket Full of Sunshine or even Unwritten over this, which are both getting put into the nostalgia wave at the moment and seem more viral than ever. Why choose this one? Shame this remix is not good at all. In fact, I really did not like it. The badly produced stutter house beat with some really bad percussion that just doesn't balance out against any sort of melody at all. The other lack of dynamics where this song just lingers around for just over 2 minutes and feels really underdeveloped even despite dragging on. And most notably, the utterly atrocious time stretching and pitch correction all over Natasha Bedingfield's vocals. I don't even mind her vocals on the original song and some of her other works, but here it just shows how screechy her upper register can get, and really this is the sort of song that just feels pointless. So yeah, not a good remix, and given the fact that the streaming seems to have stalled out, let's hope this goes down with it. It's not good. Skip it. Number 13, My Oh My by Ava Max.
Flashing lights upon my body, feels like 90s paparazzi. I'm like, my, oh my, baby, this my kind of night.
Anyone else think that Ava Max is really rushing out a new single after Diamonds and Dance Floors? I mean, that album came out just over a year ago. It feels like she's been pushing out a lot more singles than she really should have, especially when she could actually push a song from that album. Seriously, One of Us is right there. That would have been an easy sell for radio, and you just missed it in favor of this? Really? Well, here's the new song where, against the oh so charming and totally not dated sound of Brazilian slap house, she goes on about being a sex model and really attractive to all the guys around her, going through hashtag rap in order to actually prove how hot and organic she is. She has a feeling like 90s paparazzi because everyone's so infatuated with her, or she feels like Kim and Chloe, she ain't no Photoshop Adobe. Okay, as you can probably tell, I did not like this at all. Dated, incredibly unconvincing, and delivered with the exact same level of personality and energy as her last album, with nothing that's really changed outside the production being considerably worse. Hell, I might not even like $1 Million Baby, but it's way more convincing in selling her as this brand of sex goddess that this just doesn't go for at all. Combine that with awful production that should not be a thing in 2024, yeah, I got no use for this. Pass. Number 9, I Don't Wanna Wait by David Guetta and OneRepublic.
I don't wanna wait, got no reason not to celebrate, baby, I just don't wanna wait.
Oh, I just knew when I heard this coming out that this was going to be the song that turned people on David Guetta's sampling house trend, and really, can anyone blame anyone for thinking that? I mean, it's a collaboration with OneRepublic that samples the goddamn Numa Numa Yay meme. I mean, seriously, at least with I'm Good Blue and Baby Don't Hurt Me, they sample modern memes that people actually remember. A lot of people who weren't around in the early 2010s will have no idea what this is and think it's just another really forced meme integration. So surely the song is absolutely crap, right? Well, is it weird for me to say that I actually kind of like this? Yes, the bass mixing sounds as farty as ever, especially compared to I'm Good Blue and Baby Don't Hurt Me, where it's kind of shoveled in the back of the mix, but just noticeable enough to be annoying for me. But I can't lie when I say that the vocal melodies here are legitimately great. Honestly, if you didn't tell me that this was a sampled meme from Numa Numa Yay, I would actually not notice at all. They sound quite natural and actually fit into this song surprisingly well, which is definitely much better than the cases with I'm Good Blue and Baby Don't Hurt Me, where the memes feel like they were carrying everything else around them. And Ryan Tedder sounds surprisingly way more invested here than he really should for a David Guetta collaboration. Honestly, it's one of his better vocal performances in recent memory. Even if the lyrics do feel really pushy and not wanting to wait for the hookup to happen, it does feel a bit underdeveloped too, which definitely does not help in terms of replay value. So yeah, it's not amazing or that revolutionary or interesting, but considering how bad the past two cases of the meme sample trend were for Guetta, the fact that this is actually listenable and really solid to get into is not a bad thing at all. In fact, I might say I like this. I mean, it's not good by any means, but not bad either. And finally, number 5, Karma by JoJo Siwa.
All for fun and it meant nothing. It never happened. It was a secret. Like when a tree falls in the forest, no one hears it.
This is the first song that JoJo Siwa has released on streaming services, and can I be honest, who the hell cares about JoJo Siwa anymore? For those of you who don't know, she was a dancer on the long, frustrating reality show of Dance Moms, and has since left to go on some, let's call them misadventures at best, resulting in her releasing her first adult single to coincide with the obviously not forced adult rebranding. And really? This is it? This badly produced 2010s club song with the goddamn commas air horns with some of the worst mixing I've heard in the top 5 song to date? Seriously, the Sims are placed just as loud as JoJo's vocals, and the percussion is completely smothered out to the point where there's absolutely no groove or danceability with this one to begin with, and of course alongside those, JoJo Siwa just sounds awful here. She can't really sing well to save her life. She's just covered in all layers of vocal effects and auto-tune to smother how badly her vocals really peak in the mix, and the fact that she can't really belt to save her life does not help this at all. But of course, the element that's been getting a lot more vitriol here comes in the lyrics, where JoJo talks about how she used to be a bad girl and was going around being ignorant and actively obnoxious, to the point where she brings up the fact that she was cheating on the pre-chorus alongside some horrible biblical references, and seriously, what the fuck is this writing? But then the hook comes in where she throws around some of the most laughably forced swearing I've heard in a mainstream song to date, as she goes down a self-deprecating route about how she was treated by Karma, before the absolutely revealing second verse comes in where she calls the new girl boring and a good girl. And my god, this makes you come off like a total asshole. Why the fuck would you even say that? This is the sort of person who thinks that being a bad girl is tucking your shirt in, wearing a backwards cap, and treating members of your past band with disrespect. Oh wait! See, I don't buy this victim complex coming from her whatsoever. It goes against her whole forced rebranding and is completely unconvincing, especially considering how much she is openly aware of her awful past behavior, and given the fact that she doesn't restrain herself vocally or even show any sort of signs that she's actually apologetic. I don't buy this for a second. So yeah, this is trash, and quite frankly, the fact that this is actually able to be a thing on the dance charts at all is absolutely fucking annoying for me. I mean, I don't expect this to stick around this high considering the streaming has already long given up on this. Honestly, good riddance, because this is absolutely terrible. And yeah, it's by far the worst of this week. But for Dishonourable runner-up, I think it's gonna go to These Words by Badger and Natasha Bedingfield, if only because the production on that one annoyed the hell out of me. You got off lucky, Ava Max and Empire of the Sun. What disappointments those other songs were. For Best of the Week though, it was surprisingly actually pretty hard. I mean, Best of the Week is obviously going to Illusion by Dua Lipa. I'm really excited to see this hit #1 next week and be the biggest jump to #1 in Hot Dance Charts history. But alongside that, honourable runner-up is going to Heaven or Not by Diplo and Riva Starr featuring Kareen Lomax. Although I will say that Wuki and Back to Back by Charli XCX were actually really close to getting there. Those ones really did impress me. Next week, there's the likelihood of 2 new new Fred Again songs minimum coming here, and besides that, I expect an alternative version of Karma by JoJo Siwa to charts from a different artist, and one that's apparently a lot better, so it could be a lot more interesting. But yeah, that's all for this episode of the analysis of dance. See you next time.